Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, I'm Rob and I talk about high-end collectible comics and comics art. Subscribe if that's your kind of thing. I love to talk about comics and I post 1 or 2 videos a week doing just that. This week I'm actually going to post 3 videos, maybe 4 if I get a podcast episode out. I'm going to do 3 videos on the upcoming Heritage Signature Auction because there's so much good material. I want to cover it all in depth and have some fun. I'm starting with the Frank Frazetta Vampirella #1 cover, which is, of course, the most significant piece in the auction, and it has an interesting backstory, and it's part of comics auction history. And so I just want to cover all of that. I've covered it before on the channel, but a lot of you are new, and I just want to go over it again because I think it's fascinating, and it intersects with one of my favorite topics that I've covered many, many times, which is the divergence in values of certain things over the years. And I won't spoil that now in case you're new here, and you'll find out an interesting anecdote about 2 auction lots in the 1991 Sotheby's auction. Let's get started. We'll start with the piece itself. Frank Frazetta Vampirella #1 cover painting, original art, Warren, 1969. Let's start with the description from Heritage because I think this is interesting and it sets the stage for what we're going to talk about. And then we'll look at some other details since like I said, I've covered this a lot previously in a video about the 1991 Sotheby's auction where this sold originally. And so I've done some research about this piece already. Heritage says, the definitive image of the Draculon Queen straight from the master's brush. Frank Frazetta's painting for Vampirella #1 wasn't just a cover. It was the first glimpse fans ever got on the stands. And it hit like a lightning bolt. In one glance, Vampirella arrived fully formed, dangerous, alluring, and impossible to ignore. The image has since become one of the era's most recognizable horror comics icons. By the late 1960s, Warren Publishing's momentum from Famous Monsters, Creepy, and Eerie had started to cool, and James Warren wanted a jolt. With the pop culture buzz around Barbarella still fresh, he set out to create a sexy new kind of horror figure, one who could tempt you into picking up the magazine and still dispatch the monsters once you opened it. Warren put it best. When Frank portrays a woman, he injects a certain mystique. I wanted my Vampirella to have that same mystique. Vampirella would be more than a hostess. She would headline her own continuing feature. Her look came together through a perfect storm of ideas. Warren and Frazetta shaped the concept, with Trina Robbins offering key design input as the costume took form. Warren even commissioned an alternative cover from a French artist, then walked away from it and turned back to Frazetta. Frazetta finished the published painting in only a few hours, a detail that still feels unreal when you see how effortlessly it commands attention. The result is pure Frazetta theater. Vampirella framed against a looming moon, her silhouette cutting the night like a blade. Shadows hint at something not quite human, a quiet nod to her vampiric origins before the stories even begin. Frazetta himself never warmed to the costume, and years later, in 1991, he revised the original painting in a way he sometimes did with select works, painting out the outfit and boots before it went to auction. Even so, the essential image remains unmistakable, down to the brushwork and the faint trace of her iconic collar. So yeah, he overpainted it. They don't make that big of a deal out of it, but he overpainted it. As you can see here, so this comparison is from a site called Muddy Colors. Link in the description to the full article. As you can see, the printed cover on the left had Vampirella in costume. The lot, as sold by Sotheby's, consigned by Frazetta himself, for sale at Heritage, has the costume painted out. And there are other changes as well. You can see on screen. He did a lot of work to this. He basically overpainted the whole thing, which is fascinating to me. Of the repainting, Frazetta said, when I sold the original at auction, I undressed her. I thought that costume was so corny, I painted it out, made her brazenly nude, and everybody loved it more. In case you're wondering, I do not love it more. As a comic book historian, I would rather see the original cover untouched with the costume. But I understand that it was Frazetta's painting, and he's Frank Frazetta. He could do whatever he wanted with it. And if his artistic vision was what we see on the right and what we see for sale at Heritage, you have to respect that. But like I said, as a comic book historian, the thing I want to see is no longer there. It's the painting on the left. And I'm going to open this up to all of you in the comments. I really want to hear which one you prefer. So value aside, which one do you prefer? Do you prefer the original? And why? Because it could just be for the history of it, right? It's a historical piece. You could like the one on the right because you agree with Frazetta's reasoning about the image and the costume, and you just think it's better. And he's Frank Frazetta. He was probably not wrong very often. So let me know which one you like better, because I think that's fascinating. But also I want to hear which one do you think would be more valuable? We're going to find out the value of the one on the right soon. But do you think if it was the original cover, it would be worth more? And if so, how much more? Give me a percentage for now because we won't know the actual result for a little while. I think it's a fascinating topic for discussion, which is why I want to split this one out into a separate video because it's fascinating to me. Here's the original Sotheby's listing. I'll just read the description. Frank Frazetta oil painting of Vampirella from Vampirella number 1, September 1969. Oil on board, designed for the magazine cover introducing the character Vampirella to the world. Completed at the height of Frank Frazetta's artistic career. Matted, condition excellent, 16 by 24. Estimate $40,000 to $50,000. Sotheby's didn't even mention that he had overpainted it recently. So this painting was executed in 1969. And then in 1991, when he consigned this painting to the auction, Sotheby's didn't mention that he had overpainted it like recently. The paint was probably still wet by the time they got it, right? That's actually pretty crazy to me. And I had never really realized that until today when I kind of looked at this in detail. I was like, wait a second, they don't mention that he overpainted it, which seems like a gap in the information. I'm sure anybody that was going to pony up the money for this would have recognized that it wasn't the original cover as painted, but I can't believe that they didn't put it into the auction description. And of course the condition was excellent because he overpainted the entire thing. Fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating. So the estimate was $40,000 to $50,000. Keep that in mind because now I'm going to unveil, if you're new here, you will have not seen this. This Frazetta painting, which, I've glibly said should sell for over $10 million or whatever, I don't know what it's going to sell for because, again, we have this question about it's not the original. But I've kind of glibly in videos talked about how it should be $10 million or $15 million or whatever, which we actually have seen now for a Frazetta painting. The estimate was $40,000 to $50,000. It's certainly going to sell for more than that now. But it was not the high lot in this auction, in the 1991 Sotheby's auction. And it wasn't the high painting. The high auction lot in the Sotheby's 1991 auction was Carl Barks' oil painting of Walt Disney's Uncle Scrooge and the Donald Duck family, 1989, commissioned for release as a lithograph in March 1992. So this was like freshly painted Carl Barks, Mardi Gras before the thaw. And the estimate for this Carl Barks painting, I have nothing against Carl Barks. I say nice things about Carl Barks all the time. The estimate is $150,000 to $200,000. This would probably sell for $150,000 to $200,000 right now. Comparing that to the Frazetta painting, which was estimated at $50,000 or whatever, which would now sell for millions at least, depending on the impact of the overpainting on today's market. Crazy divergence. I've talked a lot about Barks and how he used to be the center of the hobby in the early 80s, and since then it's just gone downhill. And here are the results. So the Barks painting did not sell. So you can go see it goes from 218A to 220, and it just not sold. And then the Frazetta painting sold for above the high estimate for $77,000. So I don't know if it's the same person that bought this in 1991. If they did, they're going to do pretty well with their $77,000 purchase. And they had the benefit of owning this painting for a long time, which is pretty phenomenal. So that's very cool. And with that, this one is done. The plan for the rest of the week is to do an original art video. That might be out tomorrow. It might be out Wednesday. And then hit the comics because the comics are crazy in this one on Thursday or Friday. And like I said, I might do a podcast episode because I still have to talk in depth about that $13 million that we saw from Heritage with that Batman #1 and Superman #1. I don't know. Crazy times. It's going to keep me busy, which is fun. Thank you so much. I appreciate you guys. If you've made it this far and you haven't liked the video, drop a like. It really makes a difference. Subscribe, share with your friends. And I really want to hear your comments about this one because I think it's a fascinating topic, which is why, like I said, I broke it out into its own video. Yeah, that'll do it for now. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next one.